Hi everyone, my name's Sharon. I'm the registered migration agent here at Grace Education. So today, in this video, we're going to talk to you about the recent opening of the Queensland state nominations that was just opened yesterday. So we're going to quickly summarize about the criteria for the 2021-2022 financial year, and this will give you, hopefully this gives you a good idea of eligibility requirements and what you should be looking for in the next year. So basically, the Queensland state nomination has four main streams. So the first stream is the skilled worker stream. So you have to be working in Queensland. The second is the Queensland graduate stream. So you have to have graduated from Queensland, from a university in Queensland, which there are some changes which we'll get to shortly. The third one is the 491 Small Business Owner Pathway. And finally, the offshore stream, which is currently closed and will be reviewed later in December. So without further ado, let's get to the first stream. So the first stream is the skilled worker stream. The more notable change, update in this stream is that you now need a mandatory IELTS 7 in all bands or equivalent, or even PTE 65 in all bands. So this is now a mandatory requirement to apply for the Queensland state nomination. So if you're looking at applying for the 190 or the 491 under the skilled worker stream, similarly to in the past, the work requirements for the 190 subclass is you need to be working full-time in the past 6 months before you apply in your nominated occupation, and also have ongoing 12 months employment. Alternatively, on the 491 subclass, you would need to have been working in a regional area in Queensland in a full-time position for the last 3 months, and also have an ongoing 12-month employment. In terms of full-time employment, Migration Queensland has listed this year that you could either work with one employer or more, or you could even combine 2 part-time jobs together, or if you're applying under Small Business Owner Pathway, then of course you'll be working in your own business. So full-time requires a minimum of 35 hours per week. Regardless, if you're combining 2 part-time jobs, then you still have to have 35 hours per week. We usually recommend to most of our clients that try and get a full-time job, which would obviously be probably be more conservative, because the quota for the state nomination this year is quite limited. There's only 1,000 places for the 190 visa, and also 1,250 for the 491 visa program. So if you're looking to apply under the 190 stream, the minimum point requirement is 80 points. So that's including the 5 points for the state nomination. And if you're looking at the 491 visa, the regional 5-year visa, it's a minimum of 65 points. So that's including the 15 points added. So your raw score or your migration points would be 50, and then plus the additional 15 from the state nomination, which gives you 65 to be eligible. Of course, Migration Queensland will be picking candidates with higher points. So the higher the points, the better, and also a better chance of getting invited. Now moving on, there's a few quota occupations included in this year. So there's a few different groups. So the first is accounting. So in the finance group, we've got accountant general, finance manager, and management accountant. For this financial year, there's only 50 spaces for each of these occupations. So 150 in total. In the next occupation group for engineers, there's civil engineer, mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, and engineering technologist, which is also 50 places for each of the occupation. For ICT related occupations, so software engineer, developer programmer, ICT business analyst, software and application programmers, not elsewhere classified, is also 50 each for this financial year. For our friends who are studying quantity surveyor, there's only 30 places for this year. For nurses, there's quotas for aged care nurses, critical care and emergency, and also general nurses not elsewhere classified, which is also 50 places for each of those. And finally, in our trade occupations, we have motor mechanic and cook, which are at 30 places for each. So if you're an accountant, there are some caveats for these occupations. So for accountants, accountant general, if you're working in an accounting firm, you will be preferred, and also you must be either CPA accredited or working or studying towards gaining your CPA accreditation. If you're applying under an auditor, so internal or external auditor, you must be working in an auditing position and not other accounting positions. And finally, for cooks and chefs, the restaurant has to be you can't work in a takeaway or fast food environment. So that's sort of a quick summary about the skilled worker stream. The standard employment duration is still the same, 6 months for 190, 3 months regional for 491 visas. So now moving on to the next stream, which is the Queensland graduate stream. This was previously known as the postgraduate alumni stream, which only was for postgraduate graduates or PhDs. So this year they've actually included bachelor graduates. So if you're a bachelor or a master graduate, you can apply, but you need to have a GPA of 6.0 or above. And also, there is still the IELTS 7 equivalent in all bands, or PTE 65. So you still need to meet the proficient English criteria. The 190 under the Queensland graduate stream is reserved for PhD graduates. So if you're a PhD graduate, then you don't need a job offer. You just need to have graduated from a Queensland PhD within the last 2 years. And also remember, you still need to meet the Home Affairs criteria. So PhDs can either be offered 190 or 491. If you're applying as a bachelor or master graduate, then there's only the 491 subclass option under the stream. In addition, for bachelor and master graduates, there's also, aside from the GPA and English requirement, you would also need to show that you have 3 months post-qualification work experience, but it only needs to be 20 hours per week. So you either work in your nominated occupation or a closely related occupation. So proof of pay slips would be required later on. And of course, you'd also need a job offer that shows that you'll still be employed for the next 12 months. So minimum 20 hours per week. So that's a quick summary of the Queensland graduate stream. Hopefully, if anyone out there who's got a high GPA, outstanding graduates, this may be a stream that would be for you. But definitely, if any of you who are watching have questions, feel free to comment down below, or even call us or message us to arrange a private one-to-one consultation, and we're always happy to help you. Now, finally, moving on to the 491 Small Business Owner Pathway. We've had a video before about the basic criteria, so I won't go through all the criteria. Most of the criteria for the Small Business Pathway is quite similar. However, there are a few changes. So, in general, the business that you purchase, if you're purchasing after the 1st of April 2021, your business purchase price must be $100,000 or more. It cannot include any other capital investments or stocks, so it has to be purely purchase price. Also, don't forget, the business has to also have been operating for 2 years or more before you purchase. In addition now, however, this year now startups are actually allowed. So if you're running a startup business and you've continuously been operating this business for 2 years, then you can also apply for the 491 Small Business Pathway. However, there is some requirements. You need to show that the startup business you've been running for the last 2 years has a turnover of $200,000 or above in the last 12 months before you apply. And also, it has to also be making a profit. Another more notable change is for your small business, you have to be operating it on a full-time capacity for the next 6 months before you can apply. And you also need to employ 1 Australian resident for a minimum of 20 hours per week. So now it is also acceptable if you employ 2 eligible Australian residents, but each of them say we're working 10 hours per week, but combined there's 20 hours, so this is also now acceptable. So just to refresh everyone, Australian resident includes Australian citizens, Australian permanent residents, and also New Zealand citizens who are living in Australia on a special category visa. And finally, the small business pathway the English requirement has not changed, so it's still minimum IELTS 6.0 above for all bands or equivalent, so that still remains the same. So that sort of comes towards the end of our video. I hope all the above gives everyone a good summary and idea of what you need to look out for and the eligibility requirements for the new Queensland state nomination criteria. And just before we finish, just to give everyone an idea is, if you are granted the 491, just keep in mind you have to live in regional area and study or work for 3 years. You are actually not allowed to apply for other visas if you do become eligible, say 189, the 190, or even partner visas. Those are prohibited, so you need to fulfill that 3-year requirement before you can do so, and then transition into the PR visa. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Feel free to contact us if you have any further questions or want to have consultations with us. But otherwise, thank you everyone, and see you next time. Thank you.